Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for asking me to do service. Um, can we start with the serenity prayer? I just need to get centered. Or do we do that here? Maybe we don't do that here.
No, go ahead.
Okay. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference that I want to be done. Thank you. I just need to kind of get centered a little bit. So my name is Diane, and I am a compulsive eater, and I am just over 5 years in recovery. In I came into recovery in on Valentine's Day, February 14th, Valentine's Day, the Universal Day of Love, 2020. I came into OA, and that's the day I say I started loving myself. And 3 days before that, I had fallen in the bathtub. I had gone to the doctor that day and I had weighed in and I had tipped the scale at 398 pounds. And I knew I had recently lost weight. So I don't know what my top weight was, but it was over 400. And I couldn't walk very good. I was very, very heavy in my stomach and I couldn't walk very good. I fell everywhere. I was an expert at climbing or crawling across the floor to get up to the couch to be able to get my weight back up on into the because I couldn't get up off the floor if I fell down. But I fell in the bathtub and I couldn't get out. So my neighbors heard me screaming and called the fire department. And it took three of them, I think, to carry me across the floor on a tarp once they pulled me out of the tub to get to the couch so I could climb up and reclaim my dignity. And I did. And they left. And I had been talking to a friend of mine, a friend of 20 something years that we reconnected in OA. We were good friends like 20 years ago, and we found each other again in OA in 2015 when I came through the doors. And it was one of those swinging doors. I went right back out and I didn't stay. But her and I were connected again, and she was talking to me about program, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for a program or anything, but I know I have to. This was before I fell, and so I know I have to do something, and so she's like, well, why don't you come to program surrender? And I'm like, well, you surrender. I'm not surrendering. I mean, my goodness, you surrender if you need to, but I don't need to surrender. And I was all up in arms that don't tell me I have to surrender. And so I we talked some more and I was more on the closed-minded side than the open-minded side at that time. But then when I fell, I quickly jumped over to the open-minded side. I realized that was my bottom. That was it. That was me being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I couldn't do it anymore. I could not lift my own body weight to get out of that bathtub. That was the most powerless I had ever felt in my entire life. And I know now what powerless means, both on that side and on the side of letting go. I know it now. But I phoned my friend up and I said, okay. I said, you know what? I surrender. You tell me to eat a dandelion and I'll eat a friggin' dandelion, but I surrender. I give in. I surrender. And I heard at a meeting one time that surrendering is putting down the weapons and walking off the battlefield. And that means so much to me because putting down the weapons is putting down the food. And walking off the battlefield means stopping the behaviors. So I did both those things, and I committed myself to a food plan. I used the tools and the steps. And the reason I wanted 10 minutes and 5 minutes is I noticed your meeting is around the big book, and I love the big book, and I want 5 minutes to talk just about the big book alone because it changed my life, and I need to talk about it because it's something that is a great thing. Not enough people know about it in this world, right? But then I started coming to meetings, and initially for the first year and a half I quit sugar and I quit flour. That was my food plan. I mean, I'm a believer that whatever you have to do to be abstinent is your recovery. You know, if you just have to abstain from certain things, I had to abstain from everything in the beginning because I had tried everything else in my life except what I called when my sponsor, because this friend became my sponsor, and when she said to me that it's not about the weight, and I'm like, don't tell me it's not about the weight at 400 pounds. I need to get weight off, right? But the thing is that when I took on a food plan, I called it strict. I said, okay, if you want me to go strict, I'll go strict. And I went strict, what I called strict. I went no sugar, no flour. And I did that for a year and a half. And then I got sick, and I couldn't commit my food anymore. I couldn't even tell if I was going to be able to eat the next day, much less, my recovery and my definition of abstinence was all over the map because I couldn't keep food down. And when I could, it was like just satisfy my sugars or whatever, right? But then I got back onto where today I have a food plan where I don't particularly abstain from any particular foods. Like when I started, if sugar was the fourth ingredient in a bottle of ketchup, I didn't eat that ketchup. No, it had to be the fifth, right? Now today I'll eat ketchup. But I don't go crazy. Like I mean I know my limits, and I live by my limits today. But what I do abstain from is I abstain from compulsive eating and compulsive food behaviors. I had some wicked food behaviors. I mean, when I first came in, before I came in, I know we're not supposed to mention food or anything, but it just one thing, like a pizza, for example. If I was sitting there and we had that for supper, and I had friends over, and we had that for supper, and it was the two pieces left sitting in the box on the counter, I would be sitting there in my head thinking to them, "Get the heck out of my house so I can go finish my food." I couldn't satisfy my obsession of the mind until I let that go, until until they were gone, and it was all gone. That's the only time I could satisfy it because I couldn't stop, and I couldn't stop from starting, so I couldn't start because I couldn't stop. And then within a year and a bit, well, at that time too, within a year and a bit, I had worked the steps, and I had lost 100 and, well, first I lost 140 pounds with the no sugar, no flour. And then when I got sick, I lost another 45 pounds. So I lost a total of 185 pounds. And I'm maintaining that today. And I also have come full circle in the sense that um, I have had the skin removal surgery, and that was just last October. I had lost enough weight that they were able to medically see a reason to do the surgery, and I had the surgery done. So grateful for that. But um, I just want to talk a bit about my higher power because when I came into recovery, um, for me, like me and my sponsor, we worked the big book, and we worked the steps. And she took me through the big book, and dang it, I'm going to talk about it now. I was going to wait and talk about it later, but I got to talk about it now. She took me through the big book, and here's how we did it. We went through the first 164 pages, and we didn't do the stories, and we did up to the first 164 pages. And we took 5 highlighters, and one was pink, and that was for promises. One was yellow, and that was for prayers. One was green, which was for direction, if the book was giving you a direction. And the other one was blue, which was purpose, if there was a purpose to what this passage in the book was saying. And the last one was orange, which was important words. You know how a lot of important words in the big book are italicized. Well, we would highlight those in orange, and we pulled these passages and sections out of the big book. And it taught me everything I needed to know, not just about Overeaters Anonymous and recovery, about life. You know, I don't not like I just want to I'll go back and forth between the big book and higher power, because both are awesome, favorite topics of mine, and I could talk on them all day and all night. But as for a higher power, I could not have gotten through the big book without a higher power. And as a child, I was borrowed many opinions and beliefs. People lent me all those opinions and beliefs, even though I didn't ask to borrow them. You know, people told me what they thought I should believe in. People told me that I should believe in this and I should believe in that, and that I shouldn't be this and I shouldn't be gay and I shouldn't be happy and I shouldn't be sad and I shouldn't be green, I shouldn't be purple, I shouldn't be anything really. I grew up with all these limits, right? So I was told that there was a God, and I was also told that God was punishing, and I was told so many different things. So I didn't take what fit for me at that time. I took what was given to me because that's all I knew, and I went with it. So I knew the Bible pretty well, and I have a brother who is uh, an evangelist, a preacher of the Bible, and I'm gay. Him and I did not. We came from the same mom, but him and I did not agree on everything specifically, you know, in life. But great, love him to pieces. But him and I were having a debate after I found recovery and found the big book, and he's telling me about these books and that books. And I said, Paul, if I was on the ship and it was going down and I had a truckload of books with me and I could only take one book, I said, I'm going to take the big book, because in my mind, that book is a code of morals. That book is the way I should live my life. That book taught me how to be a good person. And my sponsor was right. It wasn't about the weight. It was about the change of character that came through me when I studied that big book. And I studied it. We went through all 164 pages. And my big book has orange and blue and green all over it. And written in the margins is what this passage means and what that passage means. So I didn't just read it, I understood it. And I understand the big book, to me, to be the book I want to live my life by, the book that I want to be an example of. And so I work at that. And I did come to terms with a higher power that was not somebody else's belief and somebody else's idea of who I should believe in. I call my higher power the big guy. I know a God. I've known God all my life, but I call my higher power the big guy, or I call my higher power. Sometimes I call my higher power names I can't say here, but I call my higher power big guy, because you know to me, there's got to be something greater in my life that's working for me. And the big guy, since I was a little kid, I would look up at the big guy. What helped me? Mostly I did it because I wanted to bargain something. God, if you get me out of this, I'll never do this again. I promise. If you can get me out of jail, I'll never steal again. You know, that was my relationship with my higher power at that time. But today I have a relationship where, for example, if I walk out to the outside in minus 69-degree weather there, Michael, if I walk outside in minus 69 weather and there's somebody digging through the garbage bin. I did that one day. It was minus 40, and there was a gentleman digging through the garbage bin looking for bottles and cans to refund so that he could eat tonight. And I opened the trunk of my car and I gave him two big black garbage bags full of bottles, full of cans and bottles, and he cried. And I got in my car and I looked up at the sky and I said, "That's what you look like today." And that's the relationship I have with my higher power. I watch for my higher power. I play tricks on my higher power sometimes. Like, see, show me if
Sorry,
I'm doing it right.
10-minute time reminder, Diane.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I'd, say, show me how, if, who you are, and show yourself in my life. And my higher power showed himself. My higher power showed himself in my life in so many different ways. Unbelievable miracles have gone on in my life in the last 5 years. I have moved into a beautiful home that I finally I could afford it, because not only did I lose the weight and get healthy, I also changed my character. I stopped other behaviors that were not good for me, like money problems and stuff, creating money. I live differently. I live in a world where I respect myself and I respect my higher power. My higher power is my conscience. That's my higher power. It's like we've all heard probably the story about the little red devil on one shoulder, God on the angel on the other shoulder. Well, for me, I can honestly say, when I'm sitting here, if there's a food in my house that is calling to me, and thank you, big guy, no food calls to me today. Food doesn't call to me anymore because I've been relieved of the obsession of the mind, and have I no longer have an allergy of the body where I crave it. I don't crave things. You know, I'm at that place in my recovery where I won't tempt myself, because I know me and I know where I came from. Where I came from, I had to go to all out different side to get to where I am today, to find a balance. Like, I came from the bottom of the mountain, got to the top of the mountain, and now I kind of live in the middle of the mountain. And I see the bottom, but I rise to the top more than I go to the bottom. I stay away from the bottom, because the bottom to me is the past, and the past was not always good. And one of the things that got me in trouble with food is I I would one of the things that got me in trouble with food was other things, like I'm just kind of trying to think of where I was at now before I said that. I was thinking of something else. But anyway, back to my higher power. I need to know when my higher power is working in my life. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I'll pick it up again. I need to know when my higher power is working in my life, and miracles in my life make that happen. Like I said, I found a new home and I got a place to live and everything. And also, other things in my life. are working for me today. Like the middle of the mountain, I found a balance. I found that balance that I couldn't find before. I mean, I've been at the bottom of the bottom. I'm a street kid. I met my partner in the streets. We were street kids together. The first thing she ever taught me to do was to do a dine and dash. I didn't know what it was, but I did one for the first time ever when I was like 16 years old. But I mean, I was a street kid, and then I became a business owner, and then I got a career in computers, and I had two homes in the ravine, and then I lost everything. I lost everything, and my car sat for 2 years because I was too big to drive it. I couldn't drive it. I couldn't go anywhere. Like the life I led in isolation was one that I can only describe to people is what I heard as a kid. Hell, you know. That's the life I led in isolation before I found recovery. And I don't live in isolation today. I live in recovery. But and recovery to me is a life form, is a life is a place in life. It's stage of life. When I found recovery, I found a place in life where I found I belong. And I sent this quote through Facebook today. It was a quote that said, I don't know if it's an outside thing, but it was a quote that said, it was not by anybody. It just said that when the days behind you become greater than the days ahead of you, you think of life differently. And you do. I think of life differently because the days behind me are not the days I've had in recovery. So the days ahead of me are less, but I think of them differently. I want to do more with them. I'm out and about.
Oh,
I'm alive again. I'm a
5 minute
person.
time reminder, Diane.
Awesome, thank you. I'm a person who really, really died and came back to life. I hope I came back to life as a good person because I wasn't a good person. But I think I came back to life. And I mean, it's not been without struggles. I have struggled. 6 months ago, just over 6 months ago, I got caught up in gambling. Another another disorder, another compulsion. And it almost ruined my food recovery because it became more important to me to put money into that than it was into good food, into eating and nourishing myself properly. So it was so chaotic. And I thank you again, big guy. I'm 6 months clean from that. And celebrating every day. I am actually, I think, 200 and something days. I checked the other day. But, just grateful. That's another where I look up at the sky and I say, that's what you look like today. When I pick up those 3 month and 6 month key tags, that's what you look like today. I could not do that without this room and the big book. And I want to talk a little bit about the steps now. My steps, the first one, step three, it was the first one, step one. I when my sponsor told me I had to do the steps, and I had to admit my powerlessness. Powerless to me meant weak. I couldn't admit powerless, right? But then when I saw it in a different context, and she told me my life was unmanageable, I'm like, my life is not unmanageable, but it was. And the thing I had to realize in order to move ahead through the other 11 steps was that I am powerless and will be for the rest of my life. But my life doesn't have to be unmanageable for the rest of my life. So the steps, I took a look at them as if I was looking at a staircase from the bottom step and I was looking up. And if I lifted my foot to go up those staircase and I put my foot on the bottom or the third stair instead of the bottom stair, I'm going to stumble. And I realized at that moment in recovery, if I don't do the steps in proper order, I'm going to stumble. So I did a step one, just because it said I had to. I wanted to do step 12. I want to do service, right? So let me get right to step 10. No, to do a step 1, and I did a step 1, and I surrendered, and that's what I had to do in that step. But I want to talk. I know I'm running short on time, and I want to talk about my favorite step, which is step 12, service. When I first came into recovery, I came in when Zoom did, and nobody knew how to raise their electronic hand. So I had to teach everybody. So I was hosting 13 meetings a week because nobody else knew how to do it until I clued in and thought, train people. And I did, you know. But then I became a technical coordinator for Region 1 of Overeaters Anonymous. And it was like I got my career back because I lost my career when I got sick. And I lost it where I could never go back to work. I was on long-term disability permanently. But I got computers back. I got to do because I'm a nerd and I'm a geek. So I got to do that again, right? But the beauty of service is that when I came into the doors and I couldn't show up for myself, I could show up for service. I showed up 13 times a week for service. I showed up for everything that I could. If they said, do this, my intergroup asked me to come and teach them about Zoom. I went there and they nominated me for their intergroup rep. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever it is, I don't know, but I'll do it because I wanted to carry the message. I had a miracle transform my life, and I wanted everyone else to get it too. When you get to be my age, you start realizing that the most important thing you want to do is teach everyone back there that listen, slow down because life catches you fast. Slow down. You want to tell everybody that, right? Same thing with recovery. I want to blast it. I want to carry the message. And I serve with the virtual region now to carry the message. I serve with Region 1. I do world service. I serve in any way I can because there's so many still suffering out there. And I was suffering. When I was in that bathtub, I know there's other people in the bathtub like I was. And I know I can reach them. And the only way to reach them is if I do it through the steps. And I couldn't do it unless I did the steps myself. And going through the big book the way I did and learning what I did, Bill and Bob and, learning about these characters and taking what they had changed their life and relating to every frickin' word they said so much that I disliked them so much right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, it was like I don't want to do this, but I did it, and I realized I'm not a good person until I do these things, and I did the steps, and I became a good person and I forgave me. And when you do that, the past is gone. Because like I said, the past is what was a big food problem for me. And I learned in this program, the past is a place for learning, not for living. And I lived in it for a long time. And today I learned from it. I ain't gonna do that again because that stove, if you touch it, it's freaking hot. So you learn from the past, right? And that's what I made mistakes as a human being. I did things and then I did them again because they didn't hurt enough the first time. I had to do them again and again. I'm about to write a third book about suffering because
Gentle
I
time
believe.
reminder, Diane.
Awesome, thank you very much. But I want to write it about how I ended my suffering and because this program did that for me. But I just want to thank you all. Thank you again for asking me to do service and I wish you all another 24 hours and please thank you for my recovery.
Thank you so much, Diane. That was incredible. Let me get my script here. Sorry, guys. All right. We'll now open for our Q&A section of our meeting, which will be recorded. Please post your questions only in the chat function to me, and I'll ask it on your behalf. We have about 20 minutes for questions. So if anybody would like to ask a question of Diane, I know we're all soaking it in. I have one that will start. Thanks, Diane, for sharing your story today. Can you share more about how you took steps 3 through 11, please?
Yes, step 3, I think I came to believe and turned my life over and really surrendered in step 3. I let it go in step 3. I ate the dandelion. I was told to do that if I was going to surrender, and I did. And I ate the dandelion in step 3. Step 11, my sponsor taught me step 11 before she taught me any other step, because she knew I would need it to do any other step. And I did it with prayer and meditation. And I have this belief that I heard actually, Albert Einstein says, the consciousness with which you find a problem should not be the consciousness with which you solve a problem. So I try to solve the problem in the solution and not in the problem. I try and get to a different consciousness and take myself out of the problem and into the solution to solve it. And that's how I do step 11 and step 3. And I joke with step 11, I pull my Edmonton Oilers blanket over my head, and I'm in the dark and I meditate at the same time that I talk to the big guy. That's how I do it.
Great. That was step 3. Did you want to enumerate? The question was step 3 through 11?
Sorry?
I said the question was step 3 through 11. Did you want to give us more detail on the other
Oh,
steps?
3 through 11?
Yep.
Oh, yes, absolutely. 4. Well, I never did want to do a 4, but I did confront my character defects. In 4, I found my character defects. I found out what an a-hole I was. And in that, I was I kind of slowed down at step 4 and 5 because I was scared to do a step 5. I didn't want to tell anybody what I did, because you know what? God knows and I know that's enough, right? But I didn't want to tell anybody what I did. I did not want to pass on a list of who I did what to, but I did it. And and then in step 6 and step 7, that's what I call the transformation steps for me. I started transforming in those 2 steps because I started getting humble. And everything I said that was egotistical came up at one time and said, Diane, you said you were like this and you were like that. You think you're smarter than everybody. You think you're this, you think you're that. And everything came up to bite me at once when I got humble in step 6 and 7. And in step 8 and 9, now I didn't do 8 forever because I didn't want to do 9. I held back with 8 because I was scared to death. But after I did 9, I thanked the big book for step 8. That I was able to make a list and make amends on that list. And so step 8 and 9, once I got out from behind my fear post, I was able to run through step 8 and 9 with the big book. And then step 10, I was a rebel with step 10. I never wanted to do step 10 inventories. It was like, why do I have to do that? I can just in my head go, I did wrong, I won't do it again. And my sponsor was like, if you don't do a step 10, you don't recover. So I had to do a daily inventory. And I had in that inventory, I had to make amends at times. And I have to make amends more now than I did when I first came into recovery, because when I first came in, I didn't have anybody in my life, so I didn't piss anybody off. But now I got a lot of people in my life, so I have to make amends a lot more today than I used to. But step 10, you need it. Like you need to make that daily. It's like we need a daily shower, right? Well, we need a daily step 10. And I talked about 11, and I can't talk enough about 12, so I'll stop there.
I'm talking away and I'm muted. Thank you, Diane. Okay, I know you just kind of covered it, but did you maybe a little more detail about your approach to step 10s?
Yes, I do have a worksheet that I do, and I actually made one for my phone so that I could do it on my phone now. And it's just um it I'm just gonna grab it because I just had it to give to a sponsee. And it's just a step 10 inventory where I go through my fear and my resentments and for the day, and I look through to see if I have any amends to make and if I did anybody any harm. And I go through that sheet and the inventory sheet, and I can put it in chat if you want. It's one I use. And I do have a phone version. I built one for my phone, so I could, because I knew I was going to be doing it often more. I started mixing with people because I'm a hard person to get along with. But I'm learning.
Awesome thing. And do you have a dedicated step 11 practice, like something you do every day, morning, night?
Yes, it is a morning practice that I get up. It's while I feed my cat and I go through the house and I open the curtains and I do what I have to do for the morning routine. I talk to the big guy, and it's like, I ask, whatever you want for me today, show me. Just show me. And I have this little thing with the big guy that I say every day, and I'm faithful on this with the big guy every day is thank you for what you're going to give me, because I know I'm going to get something. So every day I tell him, thank you for what you're going to give me. Because, man, the gifts that you get once you start working these steps is amazing. And so I go through a little banter with my big guy and talk to my cat at the same time. I do all this out loud.
Amazing, amazing. Do you have anything in the evening that you do on a regular basis?
Oh, I watch hockey. That's
Spoken
what I
like a
do in the evening.
true Canadian.
That's what I do in the evening on a regular basis. Actually, I have meetings too. I still go to a lot of meetings.
Thank you so much. And what is your favorite tool? And how do you use it?
My favorite tool is writing. I am a writer, and I also I am an admin and with the one of the largest poetry sites in the world, All Poetry. I'll give a shout out for it. And we have a radio show based off that where people write and we read their poetry on the radio and comment on it and stuff. But writing has always been an outlet for me, because what I find when I write is I take it out of here and I put it on paper and I see patterns in it. And when I see those patterns, I can fix them. I can't do anything when it's in my head because it's all jumbled, right? But if I get it down on paper, and I'm a paper person, and a computer person, if I can make an app to make my life easier, I will. And I wrote a poem called "There's an App for That," and writing is my favorite tool. I mean, I love all the tools and the telephone. Like, I mean, when I had my surgery, I didn't call back to my friends and family and people for a few days, and I found I had a list of 50 people to call back. The phone has been an unbelievable tool for me. I love the phone. You know, never get old at talking to someone on the phone.
Great. Thank you. Writing in the phone. Yes, that 500-pound phone, right? Fantastic. Sorry, I'm just reading some, trying to get our questions together. Can you talk a little bit more about, I know that you mentioned that you had weight loss and some, can you talk a little more about body obsession and body image?
Yes, you know, that was a tough one for me. At 400 pounds, I had to hire someone to get me around, and my friend used to drive me around, and him and I we're oil and vinegar. We don't have the same hockey views, we don't have the same political views, we don't mix, but him and I are best friends. But he would always get embarrassed when I fell and he had to help me out. And he would get embarrassed, and he would get embarrassed to the point he would get mad at me. And I would feel so ashamed and so guilty and so I hated my body, and I couldn't be in my body. And you know, that's why when my sponsor said it's not about weight, I'm like, oh, it is. Because when you come in, it is in the beginning, right? But then you realize there's so much more you're gifted as well as weight loss. But today, to be free of that 185 pounds, to let go of that person, I don't fall anymore. I walk up the stairs and I walk down. That I I care about my body today. You know, when I had my surgery in 6 weeks, I recovered. I didn't do anything, and I felt my clothes tightening because I wasn't active and doing anything. I I didn't like it because I know now what my body likes. I know what I like. And body image is, I don't shame myself anymore though. It's important to me. I got a ways to go. I'm still considered overweight in, you know, I got a ways to go. But I'm happy with how far I've come. You know, I'm very, very grateful for how far I've come. And I know that if I'm given the timeline, I'll get there.
Thank you so much, Diane. We do have a little more time for questions. Does anybody else have a question that they'd like to ask? Was just waiting for some more questions here. I did. Sorry, Dan. I had a so Canadian of you to say you have different hockey views. That was just hit my brain. It was very, very cute.
Yeah.
All right. What I know you mentioned you have a lot of meetings that you go to. Do you do in-person meetings or online meetings? And what do you find? What do you find is more helpful for you to be?
You know, I call us roomers and zoomers,
Mm,
and I'm a zoomer. I love my Zoom meetings. However, for some reason, I need to do my GA meetings in person. My OA meetings, I can do Zoom, and I do a lot of not a lot, but I do events where I'll go in person and travel to events and do workshops and renewals and stuff like that with the Region 1. We travel a lot to events and stuff. So I do a lot of in-person work as well, but I'm a Zoomer rather than a roomer.
mm, Great. And just a reminder that all questions have to be in the chat. due to privacy laws in the UK. So if you have something you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat and I'll ask it on your behalf because I've already signed the release. So it also keeps our recording, the recording clean, which is really nice for those listening in the future because I know they're going to want to listen to Diane moving forward. I do see a couple hands up, and as I just said, please put your questions into the chat, as due to privacy laws, we can't unmute you during the recording. Okay, thanks. What is, Diane, what is has been your hardest challenge in your recovery apart from the gambling?
The hardest challenge in my recovery would be when I reintroduced things into my food plan that I had taken out for so long. Because like I said, I got sick and I had to do that. I had to, for the sake of sickness, I had to do things I didn't want to do. And that was the biggest challenge, trying to maintain my abstinence and be sick and live a living food plan, which I committed my food for a year and a half. I weighed and measured everything. To go from that to puking 3 times a day and not knowing if I could keep food down was very, very struggling time for my abstinence.
All right, thank you so much. And is there any particular tool that helped with that, or your higher power, or?
Yes, the food plan. I committed to a food plan where I went today when I need to do something. If I travel and I get off track with my food, check with my sponsor and I say, hey, I'm going to commit my food for a couple weeks so I can get on track. So I commit my food and I say, tomorrow I will have, for breakfast I will have this, for lunch I will, and I make sure that I work with that food plan and I tell her if I change it. So the food plan is still a very good one that helped me through that struggle.
Wonderful, thank you. Here's another question. What does sponsorship look like for you and in your 12-step practice?
My sponsor told me I had to sponsor, and I said, no, I don't. I'll eat the dandelion, but I'm not sponsoring. But today, I do a lot more service work in the other ways than sponsoring. I have a couple sponsees that I say have stuck with me because I don't know why they did. But sponsoring has never been as big a part of my recovery as I think I would like it to, because I'm so proud of one of the gals is doing so awesome, and the other one too, she's doing amazing. But this one, I'm so proud of where they're at, that I need more of that in my life, I think.
Right. As a reminder, please put your questions in the chat. We can't currently unmute anybody except for me and our speaker during the recording. So we just have time for one more question. Anybody got a burning curiosity that they need to ask? Or how about this? Diane, is there anything else that you would like to leave on a parting note with us? What is something that's in your heart?
Yes, I would love to say, if you are struggling, 6 words will take you out of it. Thy will, not mine, be done. Let go, let it go.
What a great way to end our meeting today. Thank you so much, Diane.